guys, welcome back to the channel. So happy to have you. Today's a very special video. I've actually been wanting to do this video for about 5, maybe 6 years. So you're in for a treat today. I hope I can do it justice. We're gonna talk about my 1967 ProTouring Camaro and why this car is so special. This is actually a full build from the ground up, and there's a lot of significance. It's a legacy story, legacy car for my family and for a town that we're gonna talk about today, and why it all ties together. Hence, I also have my Mill One shirt on, which this will all make sense in a little bit. So let's get rolling. I have been obsessed with Camaros, with old Camaros, since I was in high school. My neighbor had a yellow one with black stripes. It had the classic tower shifter in it. It's just something about it, just the sound, the smell, everything about it just made me fall in love with these old Camaros. I've owned 2 now. I owned a 1969 before this, but the reason this one is so special, you know me well enough, I like to do things different. Cars to me are a rolling piece of art and an expression of ourselves. And this one was built literally from nothing. This was a roller body out of California. It was all primered. It had some old junky tires on it and like 3 buckets full of mud all over the car. When I say mud, like molding mud, right? I have been a part of picking every little detail on this car, have helped work on this car, all sorts of stuff. This is definitely my Eleanor, I guess, if you can make a comparison. When I talk about doing things different, the reason I say that is a lot of guys that build ProTouring Camaros build a 69. 69 had a very wide tail end. It just had a very masculine presence. Whereas the 67 to me, I feel like has been underdone in the car community, and that's why I picked it. My attachment from my childhood was to a 69. That's why I had owned one already, but when it came down to picking a specific car and a special car for this specific project, I picked the 67, and I'm so happy I did. I love the pop-out windows. I just think that's such a cool little feature. But the car also has some different curves to it that the 69 maybe exaggerates a little bit too much in my opinion. So we were able to go a little crazier, but also kind of dial it back. Let me talk about the significance behind this car for a second. When I first moved to the Charlotte, North Carolina area, a little over 6 years now, and got into real estate development, we fell in love with this little town called Mooresville, North Carolina. It's about 40 minutes north of Charlotte. And I'm from a small town in Los Angeles called El Segundo, which it kind of has a very similar vibe. Cool downtown, cool, everybody knows each other. So when we started building in the town of Mooresville, there was this old mill that was built in the 1800s in downtown. And downtown Mooresville looked a lot different back when we were first starting to build down there. This old mill, we're gonna show you some pictures of it, was all broken down, bricks falling off, but it was built in the late 1800s, and whole downtown built around it to serve this mill. It was a textile mill. And then 2 more mills in downtown formed. So it was a staple in the community. You could say it's kind of what started downtown Mooresville, right? So when we bought the mill, our vision was we want to do something that's going to be live, work, play. And if you've watched my previous videos, you know exactly which project we're talking about. So we built this big 4-story, 140,000 square foot apartment building, and we named it Mill One as tribute to the original mill. And how we saw it was this was a catalyst development that would rebuild that downtown, just like it had back in the late 1800s. And it's doing exactly that, which is, it's like surpassing our expectations. It's really cool. So I decided as a car guy and as my tribute to Mill One and to the town of Mooresville, I was gonna build a car. So that's what you're actually seeing in front of you. This isn't, I get goosebumps, sorry. This isn't just any car. The really special part about building this car too was 100% of this car was built in Mooresville. Mooresville is Race City, USA. It's home of NASCAR. There's so much history in racing with Mooresville. It's crazy. If you're watching this and you're from Los Angeles, you may have heard of Mooresville just from the racing community, or you may not. Now you know something new. It's pretty cool. This car was going to be really special because not only is it tying in my love for the old Camaro, but now it's tying in this future legacy we're creating for the town. And so what better way than to support as many local businesses to Mooresville as we could by not only building 100% of the car there, but as much of the parts work that was done even outside that builder was done in Mooresville. For example, you've probably heard of the company Detroit Speed. Detroit Speed built awesome subframes and suspensions for these old cars. And 100% of the subframe on this car, the suspension, they tied in the brakes, all its Wilwood brakes, that was all done, that was all built, sourced in Mooresville, not far from this project, which is super cool. That kind of gives you a high level overview. Oh yeah, one more thing that's very specific. Why is it red? Why is it red and black? There's a significance to that too. The significance is, if we show you a picture of Mill 1 right now, here it is, you'll see that we did an industrial modern feel, right? You've got the brick and you've got this like dark gray accents all over it. So it's kind of this modern industrial, it's just a cool vibe. That's kind of what I was trying to tie into with the paint color on this car. So it's the red is actually to represent the brick, and the carbon flash or the black stripes is kind of to represent those accents on the building. Yeah, and the builder, which is really cool, which you won't be able to see now, but we'll show you in a second, actually in the door sill surprised me and had Mill 1 stitched, that's the word I was looking for, in the sill. So we'll show you that. Let's go walk you around the car, and I'll show you some other cool stuff about the garage too that you probably didn't know that ties into this as well. So the paint, I know it's a little dusty right now and you probably can't see it here. The paint's actually 3-stage paint. So what we did was we started with black as the first coat, then we actually did gold. The entire coat of the car is gold. And on top of that was this red. So in different lights, especially in the sun, the gold starts to pop through. It almost turns orange. And the funny story behind that is my first car in high school was this 1972 Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. I worked at a pizza place to afford to buy it, and it was bright orange. And one of my favorite colors is orange. My wife hates orange. So this was the way I could get away with having an orange car and satisfy her. So no, it's kind of a running joke. No, it's very beautiful. When this thing's in the sun, all the different angles of the car just pull through. It's really neat. The stripes are actually not black. If you look close, it's actually a Chevy color. They used it on a lot of Corvettes. It's called carbon flash. So it has actually a lot of metallic in it. And I have another car coming soon where the entire car was painted carbon flash. You will stay tuned for that. We are running an LS7, a fully built LS7, lots of customization. I'm not gonna go into it in heavy detail. The motor was broken down and rebuilt by Prestige Motors. Doug over there, great guy. He's in Concord, so it's also local to the area. It was one of the things that we had to kind of source just outside of Mooresville to get done. We are putting out 618 peak horsepower and 541 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing really, really moves. In fact, you don't need much more than that in this car. And it's naturally aspirated. There's no supercharger or turbos on this car. I didn't mention yet, but the car was actually built at a place called Forge Speed in Mooresville, North Carolina by Daryl Johnson and his guys. And he did a phenomenal job. The attention to detail was just so good. Speaking of all this power, when we get on it, it puts it all down. And Daryl Johnson is known for being able to take power and actually put it to the ground. So it's just a phenomenal driving car, and it feels like it's on rails. This compares very closely to some more modern sports cars and supercars with the way it handles and drives on the road. What else do we want to talk about? Let's take you inside for a sec. Actually, stay there, and we're going to show you this hidden feature on the front. So what we did, a lot of guys do the hideaway grills where the panels pull out, right? And I thought that was almost too original looking. And then some guys will do open where the headlights are sticking out. I wanted to do something different. So Daryl actually custom fabricated this ghost grill, and I think it's just such a cool touch. The intent behind this was to give it a very sinister look, especially during the day, but then at night it also kind of has this like creaturous vibe to it as it's coming down the street, right? Still has this classic Camaro feel, but you just notice that something is a little bit off on this car as it comes at you. So we're gonna put this down. So coming around to the wheels, these were built by Forge Line. Forge Line is very well known, especially for classic cars. These are a one-off build that they did. I forget the name of the actual wheel, but what we did is we did a gloss barrel and lip, and then we did a satin finish on the front here. And it kind of ties into that, you know, industrial modern vibe, in my opinion. You'll notice there are some chrome parts or aluminum parts, and that was because it also kind of gives you that industrial feel. I didn't want everything to be totally blacked out. We kind of pulled some of that in here, and then also in the cockpit you'll see slight touches so that it's kind of splashed around. Another really cool thing about this car, I'm gonna turn the lights back on. In fact, if you want to go to the tail lights, there's so much customization on this car, it's not even funny. These are stock Fessler tail lights with black anodized rings around them. By the way, you can see the bumpers actually carbon flash, just like the stripes. Then we took these Fessler taillights and we sent them out to these guys at Vengeance, and watch what they did. That's called an infinity taillight. So what you see is, I don't know how they built it, I'm not gonna try to explain it to you, but it almost makes the light seem like it's going forever. Very cool feature. Not on many cars, but it was something that I had seen before that they had done, and I'm like, I gotta have it. And listen, this car was built during COVID. This was like a 4-year build. Just to do those taillights took forever. everything was backed up and on back order. Something that I'll point out on the back, if you're a police officer, just, this looks like a taillight, but that is actually radar. So there's radar built into the entire car. The doors, the front, the back to be looked like a taillight, and also in the roof for aircraft. Originally I intended on using this car to do some rallies. As you've seen, I've done Crown Rally, we're doing Corsa next year, we're taking the Ford GT. But that was kind of the intent. So I played off of that, had some radar here. You also see there's a high def dash cam there. They did a great job hiding those things. Some things you would probably not notice if I didn't point them out. And which was the intent. Something I get asked a lot about on this car through my Instagram is, why did the stripes not continue up the back of the car? I actually saw this done on a 1969 Camaro built by a company called Ring Brothers, and I absolutely loved it. Again, I like to do things different. The stripes down the entire car would have looked great, but it would have looked like a 67 Camaro, right? This, you go, what the heck? It gives you that pause moment, like, what is that? Why was that done? And it becomes a conversation piece. Ring Brothers puts out a great ProTouring car, so I just thought it was really cool. And then what we did was we took these stripes and we dumped them into the back. So that's actually the effect I was kind of going for, and that's why it ends. You'll also see I've got a Mill 1 license plate on there as a dedication to the car. My license plate is in the trunk, so I always have that with me, but if I get pulled over, so be it. I think it's cooler to have that. I love the 67 Camaro lines. You'll see the hips on this car, the ones on the 69 are wider, but for some reason, the way this car came together, I just love this kick out here. It's just, it just ties in so good, especially with the more rounded back end. Detroit Speed also mini tubbed this car, or we did at Ford Speed, but we used their parts. So that's why we've got on here, because you're probably gonna ask, a 305 35 tire. These are 19-inch rims all around. And yeah, that's how we fit, and we never rub, even on the front. That is insane. That should not work, but it works, and it's phenomenal. Let's talk about the inside for a second. There's so much more inside too. We've got Alcantara on the roof liner here. We'll start there. The entire interior is full custom. So what we did was, you'll notice we pulled a lot of that exterior color inside the car, and then we also obviously pulled in the black. These seats are actually out of a 2012 Chevy Camaro. These were done by Chuck Hanna. He's a very well-known custom interior guy, and he's actually in the Lake Norman area, which is great. But if you notice, because I get asked, are these TMI seats? And I said, no, I like the look of TMI. That's what a lot of guys use in these cars, but I wanted just that, again, that difference, right? So if you'll notice, he actually put Alcantara in between these little grommets as well. Just the attention to detail is so fine. And then obviously the stitching is the silver to match those little accents I was telling you about on the outside. Can't have a proper classic car, sorry, without a Momo steering wheel. These are my favorite. I don't know what it is about them. The size, the grip. Obviously, when you drive a car like this, you want to be fully connected. That's why you buy this and not a Tesla. You want to experience the car and the raw nature of it. And then I actually found this shift ball on eBay or something, and I just thought it was cool, so I added that, because you got to have a little touch of carbon, even though the car has no carbon on it whatsoever. Well, except for also this. I guess that did tie in better than I thought. On these gauges, the reason I picked these and didn't go digital was I used to be a pilot, still have a pilot's license. I used to fly for the airlines when I was younger, and everything to me was aviation oriented. I'm obsessed with the P-51 Mustang. I love classic airplanes. So if you'll notice in the dash, in each instrument is actually wings. So that was put there on purpose, intentional, very cool. You'll notice that the interior is also very simple. We wanted to keep it that way. One thing on these older cars, if you're a car guy, cup holders are an absolute necessity. So I said, I want cup holders. So we've actually got 2 here, and he built 2 in the back here as well. Other than that, it's got a great sound system. We've got an amplifier and a subwoofer in the back. Yeah, I mean, this is a fully built modern car that is a classic, but you could drive it every day. That was the intent. Every little detail, like even these door handles are pretty cool. They're just, I forget who it was exactly that we picked from. I'd have to look, but just has a cool kind of industrial vibe, right? Same with the shifter. Again, I'm very passionate about this car. I picked every single little nut and bolt associated with this build, and because this was gonna be that car that I pass down to my kids and hopefully generations to come. I don't know, when I go, we'll see what my kids end up doing, but I'm gonna make sure they learn the story behind this car and the importance of it. So before we take this car for a drive and we go do some flybys and all sorts of good stuff, and we're gonna take this car to Mill 1 so you can actually see it in front of the project, I want to tell you about a couple other things in this garage related to this car in Mill 1 that you'd find pretty cool. The car, Mill 1, right? Very cool story behind that. Well, let me tell you a little bit about this and this and these. These are original beams out of the original mill from the 1800s before we tore it down. We had, while we were going through the process of tear down and site work and all that stuff, we had saved a ton of the wood to reuse in the project. Well, we had a bunch left over, so what a better way to display some of this wood than in my man cave, barn garage, whatever you call it. And we actually left, don't eat the paint, but it's all lead, right? It's probably all lead-based paint, but no, we left the original paint on here too. So at some point in time, from 1893 until today, this must have been green, and then it started to kind of peel back. Same here on these beams with the white, so we just left it. I love this look. I think it's such a cool raw look. And also in Mill 1, we used this brick tile. This is actually a tile, this isn't real brick. And what I love about it is it looks so good, you wouldn't know from afar, but we used this inside the lobby at Mill 1. The outside of the building, 244,000 individual bricks were laid one by one. I watched it, it was incredible to see. I think they did it in like 6 or 8 weeks. It was unbelievable. But inside, we wanted something where people didn't swipe up against it, tenants, and hurt themselves or script, you know, whatever. So we used this, and we had a bunch of this left over, so I utilized it in here as well. Goes even further. These stairs and that table, if you notice, there was a large oak tree behind Mill 1 when we finished the project, and we were forced to tear it down, unfortunately. And so we slabbed the entire tree, and I used that wood as we kept the live edges as well to build my stairs and my table in here as part of this whole. I mean, you can see how deep this goes, right? I mean, this is pretty, this car, you're now seeing how special this car really is to me. And it goes even further. So this was back in 2018. We actually didn't buy the property until shortly after that, but this was the original rendering I had drawn up by a friend of mine out of Los Angeles of the car. We were gonna do like a cool, again, different, right? I had different stripe patterns planned. We were gonna do something cool. And then it kind of, as the build went on, I kind of wanted to keep the car within its original roots, but also have a modern flair. So we went a little bit different direction, but you can see that even the ghost grille, we went as far as like to include that, incorporate that in here. And we were gonna wide body it. Kind of glad we didn't, because the natural lines on that car just, I found this. This is a license plate from 1967 from Mooresville in Lake Norman. So this sits obviously under here, and then this is one of very many, you can see the orange and the gold popping through, right? This is one of the many test paints that we did. Here's another example. And this is the one I chose, obviously. I think it was like a variation, the red of some sort of Kia red that they use in the modern cars, and I just love it. So, what do you say we go for a drive?
So let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let's show you Mill 1, see if it'll cold start for us. So obviously you can't have a classic Camaro without a big cam. Hopefully you can hear me There's nothing like a classic American muscle car. Hey, we just arrived at Mill 1. Here's the connection. Car, building, car, building. See the resemblance? It's exact same color. No, I'm just kidding. But hey, just wanted to bring you by here before we head out. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed learning about this car, and I hope you see it around Mooresville. Take care. See you next week.